Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video. I've got some tips for you for slow jigging. This is part of our slow jigging 101. And if you want to see the whole series or you want to watch the whole series, you can go to the description and then you'll find a link there for this whole series. What you'll also find is some videos I recommend for you to watch. These are all deep dive videos. So if you want to watch, take for example, a bit more explanation on what a slow jigging rod is supposed to be, watch the video that's linked. All right, so we have videos for rod, reel, line, leader, connections, assist hooks, jigs, etc. Alrighty, so they're all on the bottom. Now if you're new to this channel talks about the hows and whys of fishing. We cover everything from big game, ultralight, everything in the middle, including fly fishing. And today I'm giving you 20 plus tips on slow jigging to make your life easier. Alrighty. So we're gonna structure this from top to bottom. Alrighty. So rod first and then all the way down to the jigs. Okay. So 3 tips each, and I am going to explain why. Okay. Now, first tip is very obvious. Get a good rod. All right. So rod and reel, heart and soul of slow jigging, and it is very important to get really good rods and a really good reel. Uh, um, a lot of people's definition on a really good rod might be different, but I'm talking about like pure slow jigging rods. And guess what? They're not from US companies. Okay. And that is the truth of it. No matter how much they argue, okay, that each and every single one of those guys that built companies for slow jigging rods in the US, no, they copied it. All they did was to actually get the rods, have it copied in China, and then when they go back, they don't know what a slow jigging rod should be in the first place. Now, in Asia, where like some storm. Okay, I've recommended this is in the last video, the storm adagio. Now the guys behind that have a lot of experience in slow jigging before they actually decided to design and release rods. And guess what? The manufacturer of the rods, uh, they're not Chinese. Okay, they're not. It's actually a Japanese company that's manufacturing for them. So there's a big tip for you guys. Uh, Cat's out of the bag. I can't mention the company because NDAs and all that. But a Japanese company is building the rods for Storm. Alrighty, and yeah, that's why it's actually freaking good. And yeah, if you get a rod from China, you get what you pay for. Get a good rod. Okay, that's it. Now, rod lengths matter with the depth that you fish. Second tip. Okay. Um, the deeper you go, the shorter the rod, and the more easily you'd be able to move the jig. Now remember that you're you have tremendous load on the rod already if you're dropping down deep. Like take for example 500 meters, and a shorter rod would be able to move the jig uh, abruptly, more abruptly than a longer rod. Now there are rods up to 7 feet and more, and those are for long falls. Okay, now maybe up to about 200 something meters. I've used them. I have 3. I love them. Mostly when I'm very lazy and I don't want to work the jig. All I have to do is just lift it. Now long rods obviously will lift a lot more line, but when it's deeper water, you'll find that the rod will bend because it's the load, the stretch, and then the bow. Okay, so uh, even if you have like a fast reel, also remember that that's a lever and it has the longer end. So it'll take you a lot more energy. It'll take you to, you will spend a lot more energy moving that jig. A shorter rod will make it more efficient. Okay, so the deeper you go, the shorter your rod. Okay, and in about 200 meters or less, you can play around with all of them. Okay, normal rod lengths would be around 6'3", and then for shallower water, you have up to about 6'6". Okay. Um, Third tip: always take backup rods with you. Rods. Okay, so it could be that these rods would have different weights so that you'd be able to switch around different max weights. So you'd be able to switch things around, and that's an advantage for you so that you'd be able to also fish in shallower water more effectively and all that. But the most important thing there is that if something happens, God forbid, something happens to your main rod, you have something to fall back onto. Now, the most important thing here, of course, is that your backup rod should be also pretty good. Now, if you have a deep liner and then you are looking for a rod, you know, go get that storm rod I've recommended in the other video and you'll be sorted. Or you can buy multiple storm rods. Great, you know, but just get good rods and get a backup rod, because especially when you're new to this game, the risk of breaking rods is actually quite high, and that's the reality of it. Okay. All right, let's move on to the reel. The reel speed is a very important thing because it's what really picks up the slack and the stretch. Okay, and this enables you to always be in contact with your jig, and you have to feel it, because guess what, sometimes the fish, when they bite, they don't slam it. Sometimes you just feel a small tick, and this is why you always have to be in constant contact with your jig, and the reel speed has a lot to do with that. In shallower water, you can use a power gear, a PG or a PW in the case for Studio Ocean Mark, and that's up to about 50 meters. Now, after 50 meters, you could use an HG, but in extremely deeper water, guess what? An XG works really well because it picks up more line. That's it. So this particular reel has a retrieve of 99 centimeters per crank. That's pretty fast for a small reel like this. And this is designed obviously for water of up to about 200 meters and change. Probably up to 250 I'd be able to use this, and then I would need a bigger reel for deeper water, just so I'd be able to crank up that slack, the bow, okay, and then the stretch, and then feel the fish and always be in contact with the jig. Handle length. Oh gosh, my gosh. You know, when you buy an OSHA jigger, it actually has a short handle. And you have to, I would, sorry, OSHA jigger 1500. And when I got my reel, my OSHA jigger 1500, the very first thing I did was to buy a handle that was longer. Why? Well, pretty simple. This is a lever right here. Now, if you remember, okay, if you have a lever, like a piece of rock right here, you stick a, what do you call this? You stick a pole on the bottom. If it's short, you know, you're gonna have a hell of a time trying to pry that rock off. Now, if it was longer, boom, easy. Okay, and this works on the same principle. This is a lever, so each time you crank, you're actually either pushing or pulling on a lever, and a longer lever really makes it easier for you, and you know, it just makes it better, a better experience. Now, why isn't this handle longer? Aside from the fact that it'll be hard to carry around, remember, you're forming a circle, so too big a circle means that it will take a really long time for you to crank and put in one revolution, and that's also not advisable. So just a, you know, a longer length than stock is good. The good thing about the Studio Ocean Mark reels is that they are already upgraded, and you don't have to pretty much do anything. They're just comfortable to use and they're easier on your body, especially for me that I'm a heart patient, something like this. It might be creature comfort, but guess what? It helps out a lot. And I'm sure that I'm not alone in this whole thing. So yeah, it just gives you less effort. All right. So better control, especially when you're fighting fish. Okay. It helps a lot. Oh, the next one, the next tip, it's gonna get expensive because you have several rods there, and you'll need spare reels as well. So always have backup reels. Probably easy for me to say. Well, a lot of people will probably say like easy for you to say you have a lot of reels, but yeah. But see, because um, at the end of the day, you know, you don't want to be stuck there watching your friends catch fish. That's plain and simple. That is it. Okay. Now, at the very least, and this is why these Studio Ocean Mark reels are really good, is because you can field strip and then put a spare spool. So instead of actually buying backup reels, I could just have backup spools. So kind of a good idea. You can do that with Shimano's as well, but you have to be very careful because their screws, they kind of pop out, and then all the other parts kind of in danger, of going all over the place, especially when you're on a boat that's rocking and rolling. Okay. So uh spare reels, backup reels, or spare spools, your choice. How you eat your sandwich is your business, but always a good idea to have it, because not only will you have a just in case what do you call this, an insurance policy, but also remember that you have a choice of actually putting different line and different leaders on them, enabling you to fish either different depths or different weights. It depends on how you set things up. Okay. But the most important thing there is that you're not stuck with just one rod and reel, that if God forbid something happens, you just sit down and watch people, and the trip is ruined for you. So just in case, and I'm talking by experience, trust me on this, not funny. All right. So next, lines. Are we for time? Yeah, we're good. All right, lines. Now a lot of people, I've been saying this. Okay, I've been saying this. It is a slow jigging, because this is slow jigging 101. Slow jigging is a finesse fishing technique, but there are exceptions to the rules. Okay. Now there are places in Australia. There's also one place here wherein there's big fish in shallow water. So here, situation is there's 27 meters sunken ship, a lot of big amberjacks, and yeah, slow jigging. Of course you can, right? So heavy line in shallow water, of course you can. There are reels built specifically for that. I could show you one. This is an L100, and yes, although I've spooled this with thinner line, I can put, there's an extra spool there, I can put heavier line on this, and then as you can see, everything is beefed up. The handle is big, the shaft here is thick. These have like really strong carbon drags that's enough to stop really big fish. Now I can use this in shallow water to pull shallow water amberjacks, big grouper, and all that in a slow jigging system. Now, believe it or not, I could use this for tuna, no problem. And I have a rod for it as well. Now, when I say that fish are holding in shallower water, it could be that the water is 1,000 meters, but they're holding in the first 50 meters. So that's shallow. Okay. And you're able to actually use heavier line with a bigger reel that has like a good capacity. Okay. And fish with a slow jig. So it's not to say that if it's slow jigging, you're stuck with PE2, 2.5, or PE3. Okay. You can slow jig with thicker line just as long as the fish are holding shallow. And there you go. And guess what? When it comes to speed, you can use lower gear because if they are in 50 meters or less, it's the same as, we are fishing shallow water with the bottom at 50 meters. Okay, so there's even a reel that's designed for that specifically by Studio Ocean Mark, and it is called the No Limits L100 and L80, I think. And they're built for the Hokkaido bluefin, and it has the lowest possible gearing that Studio Ocean Mark has made, which is a 4-to-1. Because, you're working the jig in 50 meters of water or around thereabouts, you're working it. And then when you hook the fish up, it's power gear. So you could just literally fight it and winch it in. So there are exceptions and you can. Alrighty. Now, shallower water, you can use 8x and it'll give you a better experience than actually using 4x. Okay, now I use 4x for this and I use it for fishing for up to 250 meters. Would I use 8x in water that deep? Well, yeah, I did before I switched to X4 or 4x. Okay, but I noticed the stretch, and there was a delay in working the jig, and I just said, like, okay, let's try 4x, and it's been working for me since. But in shallower water, guess what? My Blue Safari, the silver one, is actually spooled with PE 1.5 X8. Okay, and then another a shallower spool. There's 3 spool sizes, is actually spooled with 0.8, and they're all 8x, because guess what? I am fishing in less than 50 meters of water for most of those. Now, the deeper spool and the medium spool on the Blue Safari are filled with 2 PE2, and one is, I think, 300 meters and the other is 600 PE2. And guess what? Those are 4x. Okay, but for shallower water use, I use, and take note, these are spare spools. Okay, I have 2 Blue Safaris and they have spools that I can interchange. So I have a spool set that I just switch around. So and one is PG and one is HG. Okay, so instead of actually having like a few of these reels, I only have 2, and then I have a few spools that I swap around. Okay, so 8x in shallower water gives you a better experience. All right, so just take note of that. Japanese lines are different. Okay, that's our third tip for lines. Japanese lines are different. They are actually thinner than US spec line, and you have to uh, think about this. Okay, this is a Japanese fishing method, so obviously their lines are going to be spec Japanese. All right, so this method, this whole thing, was conceptualized using everything JDM. This is why there is a huge disconnect with what slow jigging is in the US for what it really is outside of the US. Okay, and okay, given that there are some East Coast guys that are actually doing, I would guess, almost exactly like how the Japanese are doing it, or at least trying. Okay, what the East Coast guys do things different from the West Coast guys that are using kind of like a hybrid system. Okay, so the Japanese lines, I think this is where the confusion lies for a lot of guys that are just starting out in the US, and also the reason for this whole 1 gram per foot thing. Because if you're using PE2 and 1 gram per meter, anywhere you are on Earth, you'd be able to reach the bottom. Okay, and guys in the US are actually kind of fishing shallower than anywhere else. Like, take for example, for us, our average depth is about 200 meters, not feet, meters. Okay, so that's average. And guess what, guys? We dropped to 500 with these reels, not electric. 500 feet in the States, and they're using electric because they consider it deep. So there's like a huge difference, and that has a lot to do with the line, believe it or not. So, like, for us, we could drop 300 meters, let's say. We regularly do it, 350 grams, 300, 350 grams, depending on the current conditions, but we reach, with PE2. So, Japanese lines are thinner. Okay. Now, a lot of debate has been centered around the poundages. But see, the thing is, if you compare, let's say, PE 1.5, and it could be 30 pounds, and then you compare it with a true 30-pound test, you compare it. So, what? It would be like 10-pound test versus PE 1.5. You'll find that even if let's say you're testing the Japanese line, and it usually breaks on or before 30, let's say, and then you have 10-pound test in the US, you test it out and it breaks around 30, you compare the two, the Japanese line would be thinner. So why is this important? Well, the fishing line is literally the biggest surface area that you're presenting to the water. So drag water actually affects it the most. So the thinner your line, the less the water would affect it, and the more sensitive and the more you will feel. Okay. So take note of that. Japanese lines are different. They're thinner. And this system is actually Japanese made. So if and when you get the chance to try Japanese line, go ahead and do it. Don't be afraid. Okay. Now, leaders. Oh, this is funny. The very first tip is a big one. Learn how to tie the PR and FG. A lot of people are still using other knots, and that's all in good. But sometimes when you get excited, the thick knot going through micro guides, disaster, especially if you're using like a very expensive rod. So just learn the PR and FG. They're designed specifically for casting and jigging on these modern rods with small guides. It adds up to, like, the whole experience of being able to, like, for me, I use really long leaders, and I need the leaders to be in the reels. Okay, like right here, you can find that there's actually the tip of my leader there. Okay, there it is, and it is going around the spool several times. So what that does is, when I hook a fish, bring it back, bring it up. Okay, I could just back up with the leader on the reel, and it's easier for the guy to grab if he wants to leader it. I have a really long length. Boom, you can just, instead of a short one that that someone has to grab the line, which is not safe. Okay, now also a long leader gives you a really big separation between the jig and the very visible braid. So yeah, for me, possible only because I use either PR and FG. Okay, and the extra tip with the length of leader right there. All right, so next tip, fluorocarbon isn't always the best option. I've started using mono again because I found that stiffer mono actually has the abrasion resistance, and they have the stretch, and when it gets nicked, it doesn't break as much because it has a longer elongation coefficient. Okay, a much bigger elongation coefficient than fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon actually stretches more than mono, but it takes considerable amount more force to stretch it. So you know, uh, as far as shock absorbing and actually abrasion resistance is concerned, mono would actually be, or damage, when it's damaged and then it stretches, fluorocarbon almost always snaps, whereas mono is a bit more forgiving. Now, I'm not perfect, okay? I try to make or tie my knots as perfectly as possible. And then, I've discovered that braid magnifies all your mistakes. So if you screw up in one part of your whole system because you're using braid, it's going to really kind of show where the mistake is. Okay? If you're using weak split rings, it's gonna open because braid doesn't have stretch. Now, given that, mono actually absorbs, like as a leader, actually absorbs a lot of my mistakes. And that's why I gravitated towards mono, because there's hardly any part of the whole system that has shock absorption. Okay, that's why I use a chain knot, because it also acts like a shock absorber. Okay, so fluorocarbon isn't always the best option. I talk about this in one video, which is down below. Um, in what do you call this? Slow jigging 101 liters. So when do you use fluorocarbon? When I'm tuna fishing and they're bait profiling, and these guys are crazy. They have really good eyesight sometimes, or even dolphin. When we're truly desperate and we need to catch something, we go after dolphin, and lo and behold, they're not biting because they're finicky fox, and you know they sometimes they're just bastards. So use fluorocarbon in times where it's like that, and hope for the best. But then again, I also used mono in those situations that actually scored. So if it gives you confidence, use fluorocarbon. Otherwise, mono is good enough, boys. Okay. Now here's a big tip, which is related to the tip that I talked about before with the leader length. All right. If the fish are around, you can see them in the fish finder, at least in our case now. But if you see bait, if you see fish busting and all that, but refuse to bite, switch over to a longer, lighter leader. Okay, instead of actually swapping your jig, swap out your leader. Okay, and more often than not, it will work, because sometimes they just feel or see the leader, and it could be that it's just too thick. And guess what? Sunlight. Okay, thicker leader, it actually casts a shadow. And even if, let's say, fluorocarbon has the same specific gravity as water, it's invisible underwater. Guess what? When the sun shines on it, it's still gonna reflect light. That sucker is actually kind of shiny. So yeah, it's visible. Okay. Not only that, it also casts a shadow. So if you put it in water, okay, like in a bucket of water, try it. You put it, and then you actually see a shadow behind it. So any sort of reason or whatever. Okay. So a longer, thinner leader will give you, guess what? A lesser surface area for the light to hit. A, and B, a smaller or thinner shadow. So in times like that, don't give up. Instead of swapping out your jig, swap out your leader and try. If not, then go with a smaller jig. And guess what? With a smaller jig, a thinner, longer leader works, or works better. Okay, connections. Right. Um, when in doubt, use solid rings. I know we spoke about swivels and different types of swivels and all that, but when in doubt, use a solid ring, because guess what? 90% of the fishing that you will do requires you nothing but a solid ring. There are some cases wherein fish will bite better, but it doesn't mean to say they won't bite. Fish will bite better with a swivel. in certain instances. And then on even certain more like other instances, they will bite even better, easier. They just drop it down, let it go, and flutter if you're using a ball bearing swivel, because this gives you the most flutter, especially when it is brand new. If it has been used, it's no different from a crane swivel. And if it's been used a ton and it hardly turns, guess what? It's like a solid ring. So that's why I'm saying it's better for you to actually just use a solid ring most of the time. When in doubt, that's all you need. All right. Um, don't tie on the split rings. My goodness, I see this a lot, and you know, I can't say anything else except for that's wrong. You're not supposed to do that. So don't tie on the solid rings or split rings. Sorry, don't tie on the split rings. They're used to connect the jig with the solid ring of the assist hook. That's it. You're not supposed to be tying your leader onto that. Okay. Um, Now load bearing split rings. Now for slow jigging specifically, use load bearing split rings. Now I'm not talking about the split rings that have the three things. That's stupid. Um, just buy really good split rings. And guess what? Those suckers are not cheap. Okay? But just get the good ones. That's it. That's all you like. Owner hyperwire. That's what you need. Okay? Those like that, gosh, man. They're giving you more drag, and that gives you more harm than good. And plus, when you put that, okay, it's thicker, and what happens is that it's not able to move more instead of actually having that. The most ideal would be a split ring that's just one. The most ideal. Impossible. Okay, but the less it has, the more it will give you. Okay, so two, not three. Okay, two is good. Now when you attach that to your solid ring, you can find that two is actually sitting well. Now if it's three, it's probably going to be sitting on two of the wires, and there's a blank in the middle. Not safe, man. I mean, yeah, I've used them. Okay, before you actually, I've used them like a donkey years ago, and it didn't really do well, or it didn't do anything extra. So why, you know? So yeah, load bearing split rings, they could be really small. So like really good Japanese ones, they're made with different wires. It could be a small one with thick wire and then forged. Okay, so flattened, just like this one right here. Okay, so the the sides here are actually flattened, and that makes them stronger, just like how it makes the hooks like these stronger. Okay, so once they're flattened, they become stronger. So buy good load bearing split rings, and you'll be good. All right. Assist hooks, guys. The biggest tip I could give you is to make your own. When you make your own, what happens is that um, you are able to tailor make assist hooks specific to the jig. And when you do that, your hookup ratio actually goes up. Pre-tied or pre-made, or what I call production assist hooks, are really good. Okay, but they don't fit. They kind of average everything. So especially when the chips are down and you desperately want to catch a fish, you can't rely on those. So learn to make your own. Okay, and I'm telling you, you'd be surprised at how more effective you can be. um Use slow jigging when you're making these hooks. Use slow jigging specific hooks. There are hooks made specifically for slow jigging, like these ones from Owner. These are owner uh, uh, like jigger light. Okay, they're made specifically for slow jigging, and some hooks you don't have to set. Like most slow jigging hooks, actually you just come tight and then bang, that's it. They're designed for that. Now if your hook is thick, the penetration would either be shallow or it won't at all. And or you're gonna have to really crank and then use your rod to set the hook, and that's wrong. You could break your rod. And yeah, sometimes, when you're reeling and trying to set the hook, the fish is already running and you're not aware, and then bang, it could happen just like that. Slow jigging hooks, you know specific slow jigging hooks, ideally when you're jigging, the fish will hook itself, regardless if the fish actually bites and then runs like that. By the time it bites it and then turns, it's already hooked. Okay, so slow jigging hooks will increase your hook up percentage, but of course, once you're doing all of this, you're actually in the bounds of the slow jigging world. So which means that when you have like the right rod, the right line, and all this, it means that you can't pump. So the slow jigging way of fighting is pointing the rod to the fish and fighting it with your reels. Okay, so just take note that uh at the very least, with the hooks and everything, and you're pumping, what happens is that the hooks will actually open. Okay, so it's not that they're weak, but when you're slow jigging and you snag at like 500 meters, let's say, these hooks will actually open and pop out. So yeah. All right. Make assist hooks for each specific jig if you can. I've said this earlier, but I have to repeat it again, because guess what? It's that important. And this is one of the secrets of actually being consistently catching on slow jigs. If you are fishing them, okay, and uh regularly, okay, and you want to be as uh consistent as possible when you're catching, you have to make your own assist hooks. And what happens is that you basically cover all of the, it's not cover, but you actually realize the potential, or be as close to realizing the potential of each jig. That it's as simple as that. Okay, making your own assist hooks, tailoring them for each and every single jig, and the possibility of you actually uh hooking majority of those strikes comes a reality. Jigs, all right. The right jigs for the right tides, and it's as simple as that. It doesn't mean to say that you're not going to catch if you're using a slim jig when there's zero current. Okay, it has happened. We have done that. Okay, and there are also times when uh, I used a flat jig, a wide jig, in ripping currents, and have actually held. I've caught two fish in one drop on each end of the jig with each assist hook, when the water was really rushing, and I dropped a 600-gram wide jig, and it worked. Okay, so it doesn't mean to say that it will work, but it won't work. But uh, you will be more efficient, and you'll just catch more. Okay, if you actually use the right jig at the right tide. So for this, I actually discussed this at length. It's easy as 1 2 3, I say, like uh the jig widths and all that. Now, one big thing for jigs, and I honestly believe that this should have been the first one. Use just enough weight to get down. So 1 gram per meter. If you're fishing at 300 175, let's say. Okay, 175 meters. Uh, Either use a 150 or a 200. given that your line would be a PE2, you'll reach the bottom. Okay. Don't use a 500 gram in 100-meter depth, or worse yet, you know, like 100 feet. That's wrong. Okay. Yes, there are instances where there's massive fish that's swimming there and you want a bigger profile. Go right ahead and do that, you know. Or you could use aluminum jigs that are lighter. So yeah, exceptions to the rules, of course, exist. But remember that when you're fishing, especially with slow jigging, this is all about sensitivity, and using the right jig at the right depth will give you like the best sensitivity ever, so that once the fish grabs the lure or the jig, you'll feel it. Otherwise, you don't. So, kind of your choice there. But at the end of the day, this is something that's we've practiced and we've been very effective with. Okay. Now, let me answer a question. Can fast jigs be used for slow jigging? You know, Volkswagens, right? You put big tires, it becomes a monster truck. Is it right? The answer could be, well, it depends, right? So, can you use fast jigs for slow jigging? There's there's no rule that says otherwise. You know, are you going to be efficient? Well, guess what? A Beetle that has smaller wheels would probably be faster than the one with the bigger monster truck wheels. Does that answer your question? It kind of depends on where you're passing, right? If it's in the highway, which is normal use, yeah. If you're in the dirt, well, probably the ones in the what do you call this, the ones in the with the monster truck wheels would work better. But the question is, why do you even have a Beetle with monster truck wheels in the first place? Just use an off-roader, right? So yeah, I've done that before. Okay, I've caught fish with it, but doesn't mean to say that it's right. That's it. So for you to be very efficient and effective in times where it calls for the slow jigs, if you're using the system from top to bottom correctly, it just works. It just works, especially in those times where it's designed for. Now, I'm not saying that slow jigging is the ultimate solution to, your fishing conundrum, because it's not. At the end of the day, it's just another method for you to fish with. And, in certain situations, especially in these specific situations where it's designed for, there is no more efficient system. That's it. You know, if you want to catch fish, man, you could use a hand line and live bait, and you would. I think the biggest thing here is the cost. Okay, and this is a huge subject for a lot of people, and I agree, it's not cheap. Uh, but that's your cost of joining. You know, um, you buy a car because you don't want a bike to work. The car is expensive, but you buy a car and you don't complain because that's your cost for joining. Okay, so if you want to do things properly and you want to, what do you call this? There's no time limit, dude. Just save for a proper one, so that your experience, save for a proper reel, save for a proper rod, save for proper line and everything. Because guess what? At the end of the day, you hurrying and buying stuff that's substandard, not gonna help you. You know, uh, it doesn't really help you. So save your money. Save your money and buy the stuff, and you'll find that it's really different. And I'm telling you this from experience. I'm telling you this from experience because I did that. This is why I'm so vocal about doing the right thing, because I did that. I did all the wrong things, and that's how I learned. But now that I'm, like, several years in this thing, I can tell you that there is merit to actually doing the right things. Buying the right rod, buying the right reel, putting the right line on, having the right jigs. I'm telling you, it makes a world of difference, because after everything, guess what? It seems easier. It's not like an uphill battle, because everything works the way they're supposed to. Okay? That is it for this video. And wow, hopefully you learned something. And if you did, give it a thumbs up. Okay, now I need a favor from you guys. It's very, very important that you share this video with your friends and family, your fishing buddies, and all that. Okay, and I'm serious. If you have learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really need this video to go out there and do the rounds, so that a lot of people would be able to, see what we're doing here, and hopefully we can help them too, and change everything for the better. Okay, if you like what I'm doing and you want to support the channel, click on that membership button. And yeah, it's I know I'm making these videos for everyone to watch free, but it's not free for me to use. I mean, look, the lights are on, this computer and all this it takes up electricity and all that. So memberships help, and it's a small amount, but getting back a little bit helps. Alrighty, so thank you for those guys that have signed up. I really, really appreciate each and every single one of you. Can't thank you enough. It's really helping me, and as you can see, as soon as the membership numbers actually go up, I'm able to do this more and more, because I'm able to dedicate more time here. Alrighty. So yeah, the goal is to actually do this full time. That's it. And I'd be able to go out, and guess what? A lot of people are asking me, like, go out, do fish. Like, that costs money. Even going to the marina to ride the boat, which is a free boat ride, still costs me money, and that's not cheap. I mean, even if I'm in the Middle East, the gas here is also, not free. So yeah. Alrighty. So, I don't mean to rant. I hope you guys don't see it as me ranting, but that is the truth. Alrighty. So that is it. Thank you very much for hanging out with me, and that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.